one of the last golden circles, sacred circles of white endurance in this country is the motion picture medium. Motion pictures, I mean, it's like John Wayne, you know, for years, I mean, you know, John Wayne was the American male, archetype male, right? These are the guys that we all want to be, these Marlboro men and this and that. Well, they have trouble looking at a black person with the same sort of adoration that they look at John Wayne or Clint Eastwood. They have trouble giving that up. And what I'm saying, I'm talking less about the population of the United States, because I happen to think that the population of the United States is a much less racist and more fair community given a chance than are the organizations, the organisms that supply our entertainment. In other words, I think the entertainment business is about 20 years behind the kids and people in the street. They always have been.
Superfly, to me, is the best movie of that era.
This is Fly, that's Fly, but I think, okay, this is the movie, this is Superfly.
You always got some Superfly shit.
Superfly I've always interpreted as being something that is heightened achievement.
Things that were great, that's Fly this and the Fly that, it was right on.
I'm not sure it's a noun or adjective.
It just sounded right, it was right.
Your fashion, your achievement, whatever, it's rarefied.
So you had, you know, in the late 60s, really a sort of minimal slate of black films, with the exception of Sidney Poitier, who, of course, was a major box office star at the time.
The prospect for, I guess, black artists working in Hollywood in the late 60s and 70s was better than it had been in previous decades, all due to the changes that were taking place in American society because of the 1960s and the civil rights movement.
In many ways, the movies of the 50s and into the and the 60s really were movies that made cases for the integration of African Americans into larger American society. But I think that what happened in the late 60s, when the climate switched and the campaign for human rights became more militant, then that kind of pleading, that kind of morality play was abandoned for much more aggressive statements. And the movies of the 70s were this reflection of the militancy of the times.
In '64, I mean, they were shooting us with water hoses and dogs still. You couldn't ride in the front of the bus in parts of this country. We're talking, 7 years after the assassination of President Kennedy and Malcolm and King. And we're talking about it. The dream is still sort of alive then. The King dream is still there. And there was a promise, there was a hope for the future of race relations that I frankly don't see now, nor do I have it myself, frankly. So in that climate, maybe it was about time for the entertainment business, for the film industry to change, to try and catch up with some of the fast-moving events that had taken place.
It started with Van Peebles' Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which was one of the first black independent film productions.
He went out and made a movie that generated so much revenue as per the production dollar, or against the production dollar spent, that it literally made the industry sit up overnight and said, my God, there's an audience of black people out there that will pay to see movies about black people. Now, how they managed to overlook that, for all the years since the inception of the business remains to be explained.
When Sweetback came out and Shaft and then Superfly, the era changed, and subsequently you had, you know, Blaxploitation film.
The studios began to hire black filmmakers. The studios began to make a genre of films that particularly catered to black urban audiences.
We've always said that we saved the studios back in the 70s because they weren't making a damn thing, from what I understand. And the black films came out and started making money, and the studio said, oops, let us get on this bandwagon.
Well, traditionally, we had one black movie star. At the time, it was Sidney Poitier. Before that, it was James Edwards, an actor who not many people know, but he was the black movie star. And he had an unfortunate social occurrence here in Hollywood, and they blacklisted him. He didn't work for 15 years. And like this happened, say, on Friday. On Tuesday, they came up with Sidney Poitier. You know, dear friend and marvelous actor.
Philip knew Ron. That's how we got Ron involved, because Phil and Ron both were from Cleveland.
Ron O'Neill and I had gone to school together. He's a trained actor, Shakespearean actor primarily.
I know he's always had Hollywood, image. I mean, Ron was always a good-looking guy. You know, he was this handsome guy in our neighborhood. So when he mentioned Ron as a possible, star of this, it even brought about, I think, a stronger sense that this maybe had some legs to it.
The first time I saw Ron was doing a play in Greenwich Village, and I was like, who is that cute guy? God, he is so gorgeous. And the fact that I would be able to work opposite him was just like, a dream come true. But Ron is a brilliant actor, brilliant actor.
This man could do Shakespeare. And he had the look, the behavior that went with that character and took it to a whole other level.
Now, you don't get me my money tonight. I'm gonna put that young girl of yours out on Horse Road.
Listen, Prince, that's my wife you talking about, man.
So what? Now, somebody's going to work tonight, Freddie.
But that's the last place. I mean, where are the dreams? What do we want our girls dreaming about in Kansas when they go to sleep? Do we want white girls in Kansas going to sleep with pictures of Ron O'Neill over their bed? Now Michael Jackson got over. When you become Michael Jackson, you can make $100 million a year. Something not threatening about Michael Jackson. Non-threatening blacks do very, very well. Me, as you can tell, I got a big mouth. I ain't never been ugly. I mean, I'm approaching my latter years, I'll put it that way. I don't look that bad. I don't think. They do not. You know who has this complaint is Rodman. Rodman for the Bulls has the same complaint. Whereas Michael Jordan is America's dream child. I mean, he does everything correctly. Of course, any of us would know, no one's perfect. Michael's an image, I know this. I say this, and I'm probably wasting my time saying this, but it's all about this image thing. And they'll take a few blacks and carefully cultivate them to reach a certain position that satisfies the need, the public relations need to appear to be open, to have a racially open policy. And if it means that they have to give you $7 or $10 million a year now to do that, rather than 70,000 or 700,000, which is what it was back in the 70s, okay? They're more than happy to do that.
The first sneak preview that Warner Brothers had was in Westwood, and it got, so-so, nothing special. And I said, well, what the hell did you expect in that theater? This is all white bread time. So the next picture they screened it with was with Shaft. in Philadelphia, at the Fox Theater in Philadelphia. Of everybody that came out, they were all raves.
The picture was open on Broadway. And so we decided we would go down and watch the lines for the movie. They ran out of tickets, but there was still a lot of line left. And somebody went around to the side of the building and they broke the door open to the side of the building. And you saw this mass of people, you know, with police trying to stop them, breaking into the theater to see this movie. And that was a very, very high moment for Gordon and myself to watch that. That was our little picture. And people were actually breaking into the movies to see it.
I remember in the theater in St. Louis, Missouri in 1972, when that scene came, because the climax was when he told the man off. He says, if he so much chokes on a chicken bone, what would happen? And the entire theater, literally, including myself, we leaped to our feet and we stood and screamed and applauded and clapped our hands and stomped our feet. That is a tremendous, tremendous accomplishment. And that's why that movie, that's why now, 30 years from now, we're still sitting in the room talking about Superfly, because it connected psychically with a people at a perfect place and time to provide that kind of catharsis.
When Superfly opened, it opened to incredible reviews for the most part. There were some who really hated the film, as well. What else is new? The New York Times said they thought Superfly was the best movie, the best gangster movie they had seen since James Cagney's Public Enemy in 1933. Okay? I used to have a big six-foot blow-up of it, but if anyone doubts it, all they have to do is read the New York Times. I think it was late August, early September 1972. Jerry Greenspan, that's what the man said. So there was no comment on the film. The Superfly played for about 6 weeks to absolutely packed houses. We broke every box office record. And the audiences were not black. I mean, there were more blacks than normal. But the audiences were like, it's a very New York-y film. Those who know New York will know what I'm talking about. New Yorkers loved that movie. All kinds of New Yorkers, okay? You couldn't get a seat. We broke every existing box office record. The music was fabulous. Now, the term Blaxploitation. Whenever an enterprise, one of the problems with black people, the cry has been that whenever blacks try to do anything, other blacks have a tendency to pull them down. You know, crabs in the barrel syndrome. Well, that's exactly what happened with black films. Every black person with an axe to grind, with a point of view, with a platform, and you know, what they say, opinions and platforms are like we know what. Everyone's got one, okay? Everyone with a point of view jumped on the bandwagon of criticizing Superfly in order to get the press that they could not get otherwise. By this, I mean CORE, the NAACP, all of them. I mean, they actually told me this. Roy Ennis actually told me this. He said, I have to raise money for my organization. He said, Ron, I liked the film. I took my daughter to see Superfly. We understood what the film was about. But I'm going to take you onto the Today Show, and I'm going to cut your mouth out. We were having breakfast. He was buying me breakfast, okay? And I was like, unbelieving. I was so naive. I was just a stage actor, and I did poetry concerts and things. And I was raised to a level of power or involvement with circles of power happening around me that I wasn't used to or prepared for.
Today, when regarding black films, the concept of super blacks and their relationship to reality brings controversy. Some critics say that the Shafts and the Slaughters are unreal super blacks, and that Priest, the Harlem dope pusher in Superfly, is a negative image for black youngsters. Still other voices say that until blacks control their own films, there will always be stereotyped images. To discuss the facets of the black film dilemma, we have with us Ron O'Neal, who played Priest in Superfly, and Hugh Robertson, who edited Midnight Cowboy and many other films, and he's just directed his first feature film, Melinda. There's a lot of controversy raging in black communities from New York to Los Angeles over the images being created in black films by the film industry. And as the center of part of this controversy, Ron, how do you see your role in Superfly, as a positive force or a negative one?
Wow, what a question. Well, I'll tell you, Jim, obviously I consider it a positive one, or I never would have done the film. I helped to write the film, my role in particular. You see, when we begin to discuss the criticism of black films, you have this duality involved, this two-level thing. You see, you have the man in the street, his actual condition, and the way he actually lives, the way we actually live in America, and then you have all the things that people keep going around saying, you see. And when we made Superfly, we made it about the way things actually are. And we hoped it would be judged and criticized on that basis. But from my observation, you know, Superfly has been largely criticized from some sphere, some plane, some plateau, you know, that has no bearing on the film. It's like, you know, it's like if you're going to discuss, you know, African dance, I mean, it's like, you know, the Bolshoi ballet teacher, you know, doing a criticism of African dance. I mean, it does not apply.
How do you explain the popularity of Superfly in spite of the criticism that it received? I mean, the adverse criticism.
Well, it goes back to that duality again. You see, you have the masses of people, black and white, you know, and Superfly is played to an awful lot of white people, by the way. It's the only way you can do $19, $20 million. And we've been in Boston 17 weeks, and we ran out of black people in 3 weeks in Boston, you know. It's the duality between what the man in the street really wants to see and what people keep saying the man in the street wants to see. Now, that's another discussion, possibly, you know, that we can get into.
Blaxploitation. Superfly was released by Warner Brothers. The term blaxploitation was not an accident, and it was not a term created by white people. Blaxploitation was a term created by a black person, a black press agent named Junius Griffin, who was at the time the head of the Beverly Hills NAACP, which at the time sounded like an oxymoron to me, but that's, frankly, it did. And he had tried everything in his power to get the account, the Warner Brothers account, to handle the PR for Superfly, and he didn't get it. And it's a big brouhaha, and he was either fired or he quit. I'm not certain which. So he formed his own press agency, and guess what his very first film was? His first account was Sounder, starring Cicely Tyson. The film, a lovely family film, with admittedly made for the mental age of between 8 and 13. It's from a children's book about a dog barking all the time, you know, and I mean, it's a very nice little Walt Disney kind of. It was a very mild version of slavery, of what the South was like, and there were no heavies. It was an interesting film because no one was at fault in Sounder. I mean, it was just, life is just terrible sometimes for some people, but there was no villain.
Do you think the kind of black people that the film focuses on has anything to do with it? Like, for instance, Sounder also dealt with a different kind of a black person than the street ghetto image. Does that have anything to do with sort of the different reception that movies like Sounder and Buck and the Preacher got is contrasted to Shaft and Superfly? Do you think, Ron?
Well, you said that. The different reception, they certainly did get a different reception. You could take all those movies and put all the grosses together, and they didn't do what Melinda did, I would guess.
No, Shaft did well.
No, I'm not Shaft. Sounder and
yes,
and Buck and the Preacher. You could put them all together, and they didn't do what Melinda did or Superfly. You know.
That's true.
Sounder died in New York when it opened. I know because I went to the opening. They asked me to go to the opening, which I did. So keep in mind, there was, up to this point, there was no criticism of Superfly whatsoever. Sounder opened. We did more than an hour than they did all week, okay? Superfly, the film, did more. We did more in a day than they did in a week in any one theater. In 2 theaters, they were in. So, all of a sudden, out came, in the New York Times entertainment section, a vicious attack on Superfly by Cicely Tyson, star of Sounder, okay? Who then admitted she hadn't seen Superfly, but she knew that it was a piece of junk. That's what she said in the article. And then, on the heels of that, came from the pen of Junius Griffin came the term Blaxploitation. He was very tight with Johnson Publications. And that's where the term was popularized, through Ebony and Jet magazine. Blaxploitation. And Johnson Publications was particularly unkind to Superfly. Mostly because I had nothing to do with it, because it was, in some ways I can't blame them, because the producer of Superfly was the kind of guy, he could be a rather abrupt and rude person when he chose to be. Well, it seems that Ebony magazine wanted, it's a black film, they wanted an account, you know, they wanted like some $10,000 ads. Having rudely declined this $10,000 ad, Johnson Publications made it an editorial policy, as I was told this by one of their staff writers, who was a friend of mine. I said, Ron, I'm sorry, but I have to do a hatchet job on you, because it's Johnson Publication has an editorial policy concerning you in the film Superfly, that you're in a little special place, you know, and we can't say anything good about you. So, in the course and through the thrust of that, Johnson Publications publicized Junius Griffin's little jingle word, Blaxploitation. And to the utter damnation of all black films and black artists, and hopefully to himself, as far as I'm concerned. If that's personal, I'm sorry. But that's the way I feel. Because this changed not only my life, it changed a lot of people's lives, and unfairly so. Because I'm not ashamed of anything that I did in Superfly. And I've done a lot of things I'm very proud of, from Shakespeare to poetry concerts to everything else. And I've seen roles, you know, I've turned down roles that I thought were not what black actors should be doing. And other black actors jump up and do them. And I've turned them down, you know, because I didn't think they were appropriate. Well, you find out all it does is cost you money, you know? No one cares. Anyway, I care, so it's enough. It's good enough.
I have yet to find any basis of proof for me that these so-called black leaders who insist on making these statements in the media, that they are responsible. I mean, that they have a right to say anything about black movies. I mean, You take all those organizations, you could take the membership of CORE and the NAACP and put it in 10 square blocks in Harlem. The entire membership, you know, wouldn't take up 10 square blocks in Harlem. I think, what, there's 2,000 or 3,000 people in CORE. I mean, how all of a sudden, you see, what makes these people, where do they get the platform from? I mean, they're not artists. They're not psychiatrists. I suppose they're politicians of a sort, you know. I mean, I don't lay out the plans for political organizations. They don't submit their political plans to me for approval, their political stands, their decisions. You know, and if I suggested that, they would say I was silly, that I didn't know anything about politics. I suggest the same thing may be true about movies, you know.
Yeah.
But this sort of what seems to me to be a 5-year-old mentality at work here that takes all black films, you see, which is a mistake in the first place, and tries to lump them all together. I mean, Superfly has as much to do with Melinda as a film as Melinda and Buck and the Preacher have to do with each other. They're very different films with different approaches and different intents, you know. And but we take this 300-year or 400-year racial thing, you know, our needs, and we take this to the black artist and we demand, you know, that he conform to some kind of idea, an idea which no one can really finally draw or agree upon. I mean, can you make a film that gets the equilateral support of CORE, the NAACP, and the Nation of Islam? I mean, can you? It's not possible.
I want to try it.
I mean, you know.
I wish I could have been a boxer often, a prize fighter. There's something very clear about being a prize fighter. That's why Ali could do the things he did. Because, you see, the thing about a prize fighter, at a certain point, they have to let you get in the ring. And if you're as good as you say you are, no matter if they like you or don't, you can leave your opponent lying face down in the center of the ring, and you can walk out and say whatever you want. They can't take the victory away from you.